Today, we'll be looking at the purchasing module within Sage Intacct. The purchasing module is native to Intacct, so it's part of the core, but it can be subscribed to and enabled when it's necessary. Purchasing in most organisations is about far more than just raising purchase orders. It's actually about controlling spend without slowing people down, keeping teams operational, and giving finance confidence that money is being committed in the right way at the right time. In the real world, yes, purchasing requests come from everywhere. You might have department heads requesting equipment, facilities teams logging maintenance work, IT teams ordering software or hardware, project managers raising costs against a specific initiative. At the same time, invoices are arriving constantly, often before finance has that full visibility of what was approved and why. So I'll walk through that journey and show how the purchasing within Sage Intacct supports real operational workflows, not just the finance theory. At a system level, the purchasing module, as you can see here, we navigate to the left-hand side in our applications list, press purchasing. Permissions and menus and workflows are set up front. So if I double click here, you can actually see all of the areas that my user has access to. And it means that users only have access to actions that make sense for their role, because that's really important. Purchase isn't a one size fits all. It reflects how your organization actually operates. If we just navigate to our dashboards, you can see here in this dashboard that this has actually been tailored to show me values like my general expense spend or my project expenses plus my commitment or my supplier balances, my purchasing transaction trackers. I do even have a live link to remaining projects, which I can see here with the full purchasing amounts. This is the type of data analysis and the metrics that you can get just from using the purchasing module in Sage Intacct. Let's start how a purchase order actually begins in Sage Intacct, which in some cases can be raising a purchase request, a PO. So here you can see when I've pressed quote and transactions, this is actually a list of transaction definitions that you can add or create into. So as standard, yes, it will be purchase request or purchase order, but you can add and chop and change what you need to based on the type of process that it is. The key point is that the request is captured at the source in a consistent way rather than it being interpreted later. More importantly, rather than emailing finance or filling out a spreadsheet, you can just do it directly in the system. So this can be from your desktop, your laptop, or for purchase requests and approvals, there is actually a mobile user interface that you can access to be able to post and approve purchase orders or receipts. Once we've done this, so in this case, I'll do a purchase request. I'll press add. All I need to do is select my supplier from a pre-approved list. This obviously helps your organisation stay in control of who you're buying from while still making it easy for your teams to place orders with the suppliers that they use regularly. Yes, new or one-off suppliers can still be added where needed, but there is governance around that. If we scroll down a little bit, then at this point, the user adds what they're actually requesting. So you can see here from our item ID, and this is how we tag those types of goods or services. We have a number of different items in this list. Could be physical goods, software licenses, professional services, one-off purchases. If it is a service rather than a product, you can simply describe what is being ordered. So if I scroll down a little, you can see this is more general building work or professional fees or substance or marketing, anything like that. You can just say what it is and be explicitly clear. You can also see we have quantities and pricing can be entered or it can be applied to the item. So you can have standard price lists. What that does mean is that for repeat purchases, templates can be used to speed things up. The system can handle different units of measure. For specifically more granular operational tracking, Sage Intacct is really, really great for integrating with those very specialist tools as well. But behind the scenes, the request is actually already coded to the correct department, the location, all of the dimensions that apply to that item have already been applied. Yes, we can add or show defaults if we need to. So I'll add this to my main office. I want this to also be my sales team that are dealing with this. They're going on a trip to make some more cash. Press apply defaults. What we can also do is you can see if we scroll up, users can also add supporting documents. So quotes, emails, internal notes, delivery instructions, all of that information stays within the request as it moves through the process. So it just removes that guesswork. There we go. That's a purchase request. Once a purchase request is submitted, purchasing approvals take over. So this is in Intacct, it really enforces the control without slowing the business down. Approvals in Intacct are policy driven. So this means that you decide which purchasing transactions need approval, who needs to approve them, and the order those approvals happen in, and whether it is driven by value, role, or the structure, for example. So in my case, I'll go to this purchase order, edit, and here you can see the list of rule types available. At the center of this approval policy, each transaction has its own type of approval policy, and that policy defines how those approvals are routed. So you can send approvals to specific users or user groups here. You can route them based on titled roles like department or employee manager here, or you can even work that off project manager approval. You can send approvals to finance, for example, if they're based on value, where spending authority is actually tied to a monetary threshold. For the value-based approvals, and it's important to mention, Sage does support a couple of different models. So you can support spend based on the department involved. You can do it based on the levels or progressive approval levels. Use permission level approvals, where users are assigned approval levels with defined value limit. So I'll just show you here. If we go to edit those rules, you can see here from 0 to £1, it goes to one approver. From 1 to quite a lot, this is an override as well. So it just means that if anybody kind of needs to default, we can absolutely have it drop into that person. This happens really, and it means that the system is automatically routing until that transaction falls within somebody's authority. For things like lower value day-to-day purchases, approvals, like we said, might sit with a department manager. As values increase or where spend is classed as capital or even project related, requests can just route to more senior stakeholders or central finance. This does happen without anyone needing to manually forward those emails or decide who should approve what. So because we can configure that as serial, multiple people can approve at the same time, and it can also happen sequentially, so you can progress through multiple levels automatically without that intervention. To keep things moving, approvals can also be delegated. So when somebody is out of office, for example, approvers are notified automatically by email when their input is required, essentially, and you can see this in the approval workflows here. And now we can see we can enable delegation, manage the delegates. This result is a process that mirrors real decision-making authority. It scales with the organisation, and it ensures that spend is approved correctly every time. Approvers don't need to be logged into Sage Intacct all day. They just receive a clear email notification showing what's being requested and the value and the context. And here you can see an email that I've received this based on one that's already been approved. Now, when we've generated those purchase orders or purchase requests, you can see here, I have some in submitted status. So these we're waiting for approval. Those in pending are actually ready to be converted. So the conversion is what allows you to take that purchase order once it's been approved and bring that into the next part of the process. So in my case, this would be a purchase invoice, and you're not rekeying any data. So I'll just convert this to a purchase invoice. Here you can see I can check any of this if I need to. I add my relevant document number, make sure that's all correct. Okay, no problem, press submit. And that's converted to a purchase invoice. So if I dropped my purchase invoice transaction definition, the system does come with standard transaction definitions that work for most organizations, but with creating your own, it does match how you operate in that detail. It just depends on what level you need to take it to. That is done through the customization of advanced workflows. It's not coding, it's not scripting. You're shaping the process, you're not building custom software. Each transaction definition can have its own approval rules, numbering, sequencing, required fields, printed document templates via, and it's essentially a merge fields document, which means that when you go to print or have a invoice generated for a specific customer or client, the format is relevant to your branding, your specific types of payment terms, for example, any specifics that you would need in your printed document templates. This is the visual of the next step in the process. So it allows the system to drive the life cycle of the transaction, as approved requests can be converted to a purchase order without anyone needed to manually create or rekey that information. From there, that workflow then decides and controls when receiving should happen, how invoices are expected to be processed, and this ensures that all of these transactions in the system move forward in a consistent way, regardless of who originally raised the request. The important thing is that rules are defined once and applied consistently. So from a finance perspective, it removes a lot of operational dependency on your individuals, and this process doesn't live in someone's inbox or to-do list. It lives in the system, or they'll be sent notifications via their email if you choose to enable that. The result from this, and we see it quite a lot, is few delays, few mistakes, and a purchasing process that is predictable, auditable, and easy to scale as the organisation grows. In another example of this, we also see things like goods received or goods and received not delivered. And once those have been completed, yes, we see that receipt is recorded in Sage Intacct. You can see here, I've got a different purchase invoice transaction or setup. And this is the flow that happens from here. Receipts can be recorded in full or partial, if only part of the example is captured. This creates clear and reliable records that reflect reality rather than those assumptions. Yes, additional notes can be added at point of receipt. This might include information about shortages, damaged items, delayed delivery, for example, with the context, and that stays with the transaction and it is visible to finance when those invoices are reviewed later. But best practice in the purchase process is to keep that separate. So it just means that by confirming delivery independently, you're protecting yourselves from overpayment, creating that stronger audit trail all across. When those invoices arrive into the system, that brings the whole purchasing process together. So invoices can be entered into the system in a number of ways, as you've seen. You can add those in manually if we want to by pressing the plus button or the add button. And what we can also do is import those in if we want to bring those into the system. For example, let's go to purchase invoices, and we can also bring these in via third parties or AP automation tools. It's important to mention that this acts differently than accounts payable, and it's worth noting the difference because they do solve different problems. So purchasing is definitively workflow driven. So it works with items, quantities, pricing, approvals before that money is committed. Users don't need to know the general ledger accounts because items are already mapped to those general ledger accounts behind the scenes. So if I just open up the list of items, here you can see one for consultancy, for example. So it's non-inventory sales only. We've tagged that as. And the relevant product lines, general ledger groups, which is where my general ledger is included. We also have pricing tiers. So for the list, if this wants to go through a different type of listing, absolutely fine. Any general instructions and all of the information that we can add to the relevant item, i.e. details, tax groups, is available. Accounts payable, by contrast, is transaction-based. So it focuses purely on posting invoices by general ledger account and total value, usually after the spend has already happened. So things like utilities. But by using purchasing upstream, you reduce those manual calculations, prevent errors, and give finance visibility before costs hit the ledger. Accounts payable then becomes the final step, not the first line of defense. That separation is what creates proper control without slowing your business down. And one of the biggest advantages of managing purchasing in Sage Intacct is the visibility it gives across the organisation. So because purchasing, receiving and invoicing are all connected, reporting isn't limited to what's already being paid. This system can show things like committed spend, like we saw earlier in our dashboard. You can also break these down by list reports if you want to, what's been approved but not yet ordered, supplier exceptions. This distinction is critical for managing budgets and cash flow effectively. So if I just go to our dashboards and go to purchasing, reports, as you can see, yes, can be broken down by department, location, supplier, project, category, depending on how that is structured in your environment. This gives your managers and budget holders clear insight into where the money is being allocated and what's still to come. Because this is live, stakeholders don't need to wait for that month-end reporting to understand their position. They can see the impact of decisions as they're made. And the level of transparency reduces those surprises, supports that better decision making, and shifts from being purchasing reactive to something that you can actively manage and control. So bring everything together. Sage Intacct purchasing module is designed to support real operational processes whilst giving finance the control and visibility it needs. Purchase requests are raised in a structured way. Approvals are automated, routed to the right people. Purchase orders are generated consistently and professionally. Receiving confirms what's actually being delivered, ensures payments are accurate and fully justified. Throughout the process, the information stays connected. There's a clear audit trail from the original request to the approval, receipt and the payment without relying on email, spreadsheets or manual tracking. The result is that the purchasing process is controlled but not restricted, and it's consistent and flexible and scalable as the organisation grows. So whether spend is routine, project-based, strategic, the same framework applies, giving your team confidence to operate and finance confidence in numbers. If you'd like to explore this further or see how the process works, please reach out to the team and we'll be happy to help.